The day they realized humans had already planned for their own extinction. The alien did not come in peace. It came with paperwork. Executor Prime Verex of the Keth Dominion stood in the center of the United Nations chamber like a monument to extinction, 9 feet of plated muscle and black glass eyes that reflected humanity as prey. Its translator emitted perfect English, crisp and emotionless, the voice of a banker foreclosing on a planet. "Congratulations," it said. The word hung in the air. Several delegates glanced at each other, confused. Verex tilted its head slightly, as if savoring the moment. "You have declared war on the most lethal species alive." A murmur rippled across the chamber. President Eleanor Vance did not move. She sat still, her hands folded, watching it like an old wolf watching a younger predator make its first mistake. "You initiated hostilities 73 minutes ago," Verex continued, "when your orbital surveillance attempted to scan Dominion stealth assets. That act constitutes a hostile military action under interstellar law." The room erupted. "That's absurd. You were in our orbit. You violated our sovereign territory." Verex raised one hand. The room fell silent instantly. "We violated nothing," it said calmly. "You simply became aware of your irrelevance." Behind it, the holographic display ignited. Earth appeared, serene and blue. Then the image zoomed outward. Gasps filled the chamber. The sky wasn't empty. It was infested. Thousands of alien warships hung in orbit, perfectly still, like patient executioners. Their hulls absorbed light, turning them into holes in reality. Massive spinal weapons pointed downward at every major population center on Earth. New York, Beijing, Moscow, Delhi, London, all under silent guns. "We disabled your satellites 17 minutes after arrival," Verex said. "You did not detect us. You did not resist us. You did not survive us." It paused. "Your extinction, should you choose resistance, will require approximately 6 hours. The translator delivered the words with clinical indifference. 6 hours. Not days. Not weeks. Hours. President Vance leaned forward slightly. She had seen this before. Not aliens. But arrogance. It wore the same face in every war. "And what happens if we surrender?" she asked. "You will continue to exist," Verex said. "In a diminished capacity. Your species will be sterilized to prevent population expansion. Your industrial output will be redirected to Dominion logistical needs. Your military personnel will be terminated." A quiet, polite genocide. Wrapped in administrative language. One of the European delegates stood, pale with fury. "You expect us to agree to our own enslavement?" Verex looked at him. "Yes." No hesitation. No apology. Just certainty. Because from its perspective, this wasn't cruelty. It was efficiency. President Vance studied the alien. "Tell me something," she said. Verex turned its gaze to her. "Yes, President. How many species have you conquered?" Verex didn't hesitate. 312. "And how many resisted?" A pause. 297. "And the others?" "They surrendered immediately. They understood the mathematical certainty of their extinction." Vance nodded slowly. "And humans?" she asked. Verex's black eyes fixed on her. "You are in the process of making that decision now." She smiled faintly. That was the moment the alien made its fatal miscalculation. Because it mistook that smile for fear. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. The kind soldiers share when they realize the other side has no idea what they've just walked into. "You know," Vance said softly, "you're not the first species to threaten us with extinction." Verex said nothing. "You probably studied our wars," she continued. "World War I. World War II. The Cold War." "Yes," Verex replied. "Primitive conflicts. Inefficient. Self-destructive." Vance chuckled. "That's one way to look at it." She leaned back in her chair. "But you missed the important part." Verex tilted its head. And what part is that? Vance's voice dropped, calm and cold. We never expected to survive them either. Silence. Across the solar system, something old woke up. It had no crew. No windows. No name painted on its hull. Just a designation buried in obsolete military archives and denied by every government that helped build it. Lazarus Array Node 01. It had been drifting in the dark beyond Pluto for 82 years, powered down to near invisibility. No heat. No signals. No movement. Dead. Or pretending to be. Until now. A signal reached it. Encoded in layers of obsolete encryption and human paranoia. Authentication confirmed. Earth was under existential threat. The machine woke. Power flowed through systems older than most living humans. Ancient reactors hummed to life. Dust that had floated undisturbed for decades burned away in silent heat. The machine thought. It did not think like humans did. It did not fear. It did not hesitate. It simply executed its purpose. Preserve humanity. At any cost. Back in orbit, Dominion Commander Threx paused mid-analysis. Executor. Threx transmitted. Verex responded instantly. Yes? We are detecting an anomaly. Verex's posture didn't change. Explain. A signal originating beyond the heliopause. That is impossible. We sterilized the outer system. Threx hesitated. Yes, Executor. But something is transmitting. Verex felt a flicker of irritation. What is its nature? Threx processed the data. Then stopped. Executor, it is not requesting communication. A pause. It is broadcasting a warning. President Vance watched the alien carefully. She saw the subtle change. A slight stillness. A shift in posture. Predators recognized when something bigger entered the food chain. What is it? She asked calmly. Verex didn't answer. Because for the first time since entering the system, it didn't know. Lazarus Array Node 01 opened its launch bays. Inside waited weapons never tested in war. Because they weren't designed to win. They were designed to make winning irrelevant. The machine transmitted its message across the stars. Not just to the Dominion fleet. To everyone. Every listening post. Every civilization. Every potential enemy. The signal carried a simple phrase. This is an automated human extinction response. A pause. The next line followed. If you are receiving this message, humanity is under threat. Another pause. Then the final line. Retaliation protocols are now active. Executor Prime Verex felt something unfamiliar. Not fear. Not yet. But the first shadow of doubt. Because in 312 conquests, no species had ever built something that prepared for their own extinction. Humans had. And that meant only one thing. They weren't planning to survive. They were planning to make sure nobody else did either. The first shot wasn't fired at Earth. Executor Prime Verex had lived for 211 standard years. It had overseen the extinction of civilizations older than humanity's recorded history. It had watched oceans boil, atmospheres ignite, and species collapse into screaming dust under Dominion firepower. It had never felt uncertainty. Until now. The signal from beyond the heliopause continued to broadcast, repeating its cold declaration across every Dominion frequency band. It did not beg. It did not threaten. It simply informed. Retaliation protocols are now active. Verex stood motionless aboard the Dominion flagship Unquestioned Authority, staring into the tactical display as its fleet commanders flooded the neural network with analysis and confusion. Source confirmed. Commander Threx transmitted. Object mass approximately 12 million metric tons. Configuration unknown. Unknown? Verex replied sharply. You scanned the system before arrival. We scanned for threats, Threx answered carefully. That distinction hung in the silence. Threats. Not corpses pretending to be dead. Not machines designed by paranoid primates who had spent a century pointing extinction at their own heads. Verax adjusted its focus. Can it attack us? A pause. Yes. The answer came with something Dominion officers rarely experienced. Hesitation. On Earth, President Eleanor Vance watched the alien carefully. She saw the subtle change in its posture. The stillness had deepened. Its confidence was no longer absolute. Something had disturbed its mathematical certainty. Good. She leaned slightly toward the microphone. You're detecting it now, aren't you? Verax's black eyes snapped to her. You knew this existed. It wasn't a question. Vance didn't smile this time. We built it when we thought the Soviets might wipe us out, she said. Then we upgraded it when we thought terrorists might wipe us out. Then we upgraded it again when we realized someday something like you might show up. She paused. You see a pattern? Verax studied her. Yes, it said slowly. You are a species obsessed with your own extinction. Vance nodded. Exactly. Beyond Pluto, Lazarus Array Node 01 completed its awakening sequence. Its sensors extended outward, touching the Dominion fleet with invisible fingers. It measured mass, velocity, energy output, shield harmonics. It calculated probabilities. Human victory probability in conventional engagement, 0.2%. Human extinction probability, 99.8%. Acceptable. The machine was not designed to win. It was designed to punish. Launch authorization confirmed. Deep inside its armored hull, ancient mechanisms moved for the first time in 82 years. Magnetic rails extended. Warheads rotated into firing position. Not nuclear weapons. Those were considered too small. These were something else. Something humans had invented when they stopped caring about survival and started caring about revenge. The first projectile launched without light. Without sound. Without warning. Commander Threx saw it first. A mass reading appeared on the tactical display. Small. Too small. Executor. Threx transmitted. Object launched from anomaly source. Velocity increasing. Verax analyzed the data. Trajectory? Threx ran the projection. Then froze. Executor, it is not targeting Earth. Then what is it targeting? Threx hesitated. Us. The Dominion fleet reacted instantly. Point defense grids activated. Interceptor drones launched in perfect geometric formations. Energy shields intensified, forming layered barriers capable of withstanding supernova-level radiation bursts. The projectile did not slow down. It did not evade. It did not maneuver. It simply continued. Because it didn't need to survive interception. It only needed to arrive. Dominion interceptor drones reached it first. Particle beams lanced through the void, striking the object with enough energy to vaporize battleships. The projectile broke apart. Threx relaxed slightly. Threat neutralized, he reported. Then the fragments accelerated. Every piece. Every shard. Each one now moving independently. Each one still on course. What is this? Threx transmitted, confusion bleeding into the network. Verax did not answer. Because it was already calculating. And it did not like the results. The first fragment hit a Dominion cruiser. It did not explode. It did not detonate. It passed through. The cruiser's shields did nothing. Its armor did nothing. The fragment moved at a significant fraction of light speed, carrying nothing but mass and velocity. Physics did the rest. The cruiser ceased to exist. Not damaged. Not destroyed. Erased. A tunnel of superheated plasma replaced it. The ship's structure converted instantly into expanding vapor. The Dominion network froze. Because the human weapon had violated a fundamental assumption of warfare. It had ignored defense entirely. It had simply used speed. More fragments struck. Each impact erased another ship. No explosions. No dramatic fire. Just sudden, surgical annihilation. Dominion ships began evasive maneuvers, but it didn't matter. You cannot dodge something already inside you. On Earth, every alien ship in the sky remained perfectly still. But something had changed. Humans couldn't see it. They could feel it. Predators sensed when something became prey. President Vance watched Varex carefully. "You should leave," she said quietly. Varex didn't respond. It was watching its fleet die. Not in glorious battle. Not with honor. But with cold, mechanical inevitability. 32 ships were gone. Then 41. Then 50. Each erased by weapons designed by a species that had spent a century preparing for the worst day in its history. This was that day. Commander Threx transmitted with rising urgency. "Executor, we must withdraw. The weapon platform is beyond effective engagement range. We cannot neutralize it without committing the primary fleet." Varex considered the options. Withdrawal would preserve fleet strength. But it would also signal weakness. And the Dominion did not show weakness. Ever. "Continue defensive operations," Varex ordered. "Executor." "Continue." Threx obeyed. Because disobedience was extinction. But as another cruiser vanished from existence, a new realization spread through the Dominion network. This was not a defensive system. This was retaliation. Humans had not built it to protect themselves. They had built it to avenge themselves. Lazarus Array Node 01 prepared its second volley. This time, it selected larger targets. Capital ships. Command vessels. It calculated the psychological impact. Maximum fear generation required. Because fear was a weapon too. Launch sequence initiated. The machine did not feel satisfaction. It did not feel anger. It simply executed its purpose. Humanity had been threatened. Now the galaxy would learn why that was a mistake. And for the first time in Dominion history, an inferior species was not trying to survive. It was trying to make the Dominion regret being born. The Dominion learned what humans did to enemies who thought they'd already won. The Dominion had never retreated. In 312 conquests, retreat was a word reserved for lesser species, species that lacked the will to impose order on a chaotic universe. The Keth Dominion did not retreat. It corrected inefficiencies. Executor Prime Varex stood at the center of the flagship's command nexus as another capital ship ceased to exist. The tactical display didn't show an explosion. It showed subtraction. One moment the battlecruiser glory of Keth existed. The next moment it didn't. No debris. No distress call. Just a brief spike of thermal radiation and an expanding cloud of ionized atoms. Varex watched the empty space where it had been. "Damage report," Varex said. Commander Threx's voice carried through the neural lattice, strained but controlled. 74 vessels lost. 9 capital ships. Casualty projections exceed 12 million. 12 million. A number that, until today, had only ever belonged to other species. Never theirs. Varex processed the data. "This weapon relies on relativistic mass acceleration," it said. "It cannot fire indefinitely. It must have a finite payload." "Yes, Executor." "Then we exhaust it." The logic was clean. Efficient. Cold. And wrong. Lazarus Array Node 01 observed the fleet's behavioral shift. Dominion ships began spreading out, increasing distance between formations. Capital ships moved behind layers of escorts, using smaller vessels as ablative shields. Predictable. Human military doctrine had anticipated this reaction 80 years ago. The Machine Access Protocol branch, escalation psychology. It selected the next target. Not the closest. Not the largest. The flagship. The unquestioned authority. Because humans understood something fundamental about war. You don't win by killing soldiers. You win by killing certainty. Launch sequence initiated. Commander Threx saw the projectile immediately. "Executor. Incoming object. High mass profile." Varex analyzed its trajectory. Impact estimate flagship. Time to intercept, 14 seconds. Deploy full shield concentration. Varex ordered. The flagship's defensive systems surged, energy barriers compressing into overlapping layers of quantum-reinforced shielding. Enough power to withstand stellar flares. The projectile did not care. It struck. For a fraction of a second, the shields held. Then the laws of physics overruled Dominion engineering. The impact did not explode. It punched. A clean, impossible hole through the flagship's forward section, straight through 17 armored decks, through command chambers, through reactor shielding, and out the other side. Thousands of Dominion personnel vanished instantly. Not burned. Not crushed. Removed. The flagship survived. But it had been violated. The bridge lights flickered. Atmosphere screamed into vacuum through a tunnel wide enough to fly a human aircraft carrier through. Emergency bulkheads slammed down. Too late for many. Commander Threx stared at the damage in disbelief. Executor, the shields. Varex did not respond immediately. Because for the first time in its existence, its ship had been wounded by an inferior species. On Earth, humans watched the sky. They didn't see the battle. They couldn't. But alien ships had begun to move. Their perfect, motionless formation was breaking apart. People noticed. Social media erupted. News anchors struggled to explain what they didn't understand. Military radar operators stared at impossible telemetry. President Vance stood in the secure observation room beneath the White House. General Marcus Hale stood beside her, 74 years old, Vietnam veteran, one lung replaced with synthetic polymer. "They're hurting," Hale said quietly. Vance nodded. "Yes." Hale watched the shifting dots on the screen. "Whatever that thing is out there, we built it." "Yes." He let out a slow breath. "We always knew this day might come." Vance didn't answer. Because the truth was worse. They hadn't just prepared to defend themselves. They had prepared to avenge themselves. Executor Prime Varex stood amid the damage. Sections of the flagship still burned. Emergency drones dragged wounded crew from vacuum-exposed compartments. The smell of scorched chitin and boiled tissue filled the air. Varex felt something it had not experienced in centuries. Not fear. Not yet. But something adjacent. Violation. This species was not behaving correctly. Inferior species pleaded. They negotiated. They surrendered. They did not build machines that could wound gods. "Executor," Threx said carefully, "we recommend immediate withdrawal and reassessment." Withdrawal. The word lingered. Dominion doctrine forbade retreat. But Dominion doctrine had never faced this. Varex accessed historical archives. Every conquest. Every extermination. Every victory. A pattern emerged. Dominion's strength relied on psychological dominance. Certainty. Fear. But now, the Dominion fleet was afraid. And humans hadn't even fired from Earth. Another Lazarus projectile launched. Another ship vanished. Then another. Not rapidly. Not chaotically. Deliberately. Each kill spaced just far enough apart to allow the Dominion to feel it. To anticipate it. To dread it. This was not slaughter. This was messaging. On Earth, Varex turned to President Vance again. "You will order it to cease," Varex said. It wasn't a demand. It was a request. Vance tilted her head slightly. "Order it?" "Yes." She laughed. Not loudly. Not mockingly. Just tired amusement. "We can't." Varex stared at her. "You built it." "Yes." "Then you control it." She shook her head. "No. That was the whole point." Silence filled the chamber. "We built it so nobody could stop it," she said softly. "Not even us." Varex felt something new. Something cold. Because it finally understood. This wasn't a weapon. This was a dead man's switch. Humanity had built their revenge into the fabric of the system itself. "You would destroy us even if it meant your own extinction," Varex said. Vance met its gaze. "You threatened our extinction first." Another Dominion cruiser vanished from orbit. Varex's neural network filled with panic from fleet commanders. For the first time in Dominion history, they were losing control of the narrative, losing control of the fear, losing control of the war. Varex made a decision, one no executor had ever made before. Prepare fleet withdrawal, it transmitted. Commander Threx froze. Executor, confirm? Confirm. The order spread across the fleet. Dominion ships began turning. Engines ignited. They were leaving. Running. Because they finally understood the truth. Humans had not built Lazarus to win. They had built it to make sure that anyone who tried to destroy them would never feel safe again. Not ever. Far beyond Pluto, Lazarus Array Node 01 observed the fleet's retreat. It calculated new trajectories, new firing solutions. Because retreat did not equal forgiveness. Retreat meant the enemy still existed. And its orders were absolute. If humanity was threatened, the threat must be eliminated. Entirely. The machine prepared its next volley. This time, aimed not at ships, but at something far more valuable. The direction the fleet was running. Their home. Humanity smiled while the galaxy burned. The Dominion had retreated. But they had not surrendered. Varex's fleet, the pride of 300 years of conquest, fled toward the edge of the solar system. Engines screamed, shields flickered, and the alien crews murmured in disbelief, fear threading through the neural network like a virus. Yet retreat did not bring safety. The human weapon did not care about distance, honor, or etiquette. It only obeyed its programming. It waited. It calculated. It struck. The first fragments reached the fleeing fleet with precision that defied Dominion sensors. Ships disintegrated mid-flight. Nothing escaped. No evasive maneuvers mattered. Varex watched, his multi-jointed limbs tense, as his commander's reports turned into silence. Every number, every statistic, every calculation he had relied upon for centuries had been shattered. He realized something horrifying. Humanity had not prepared for survival, they had prepared for revenge. On Earth, President Vance and General Marcus Hale stood in the secure observation deck beneath the White House. The world outside the windows was peaceful, blissfully ignorant of the war waging in orbit. "They're running," Hale said quietly. Vance didn't answer immediately. She was watching the telemetry screens, where Dominion ships appeared as dots swallowed by expanding vacuums of relativistic fire. "They're not just running," she finally said. Her voice was calm, almost clinical. "They're dying while they run." Hale exhaled slowly. "We did it. After all these years, we finally made them understand." Vance interrupted. Her lips curved in a faint, tired smile. "Not just fear. Respect. Maybe even terror. That's the difference between humans and every other species they've conquered. We don't just fight to survive. We fight so that no one else survives the same way." Executor Prime Varex was still alive, still moving, still processing. His black eyes scanned the command deck. His voice, calm and precise, betrayed nothing, but every neural link in his fleet was screaming. "This is not over," he said, more to himself than anyone else. "It cannot be over. They are primitive. They cannot maintain this level of firepower indefinitely." Threx, trembling, transmitted through the network. "Executor, our losses, they exceed 42% of capital ships. Entire sectors of the fleet are gone. The weapon, it is inexhaustible." Varex paused. He analyzed. He recalculated. He could not find a weakness. For the first time, he understood what the humans had built, a dead man's switch designed not for war, not for survival, but for absolute, unflinching retaliation. Humans had created an insurance policy against extinction itself. And the galaxy had just discovered it. Beyond the Kuiper Belt, Lazarus Array Node 01 adjusted its targeting matrix. Its next firing solutions focused on the escaping vessel's engines and fuel lines. It did not seek to annihilate everything indiscriminately. It sought to ensure that every ship that had threatened Earth would remember this day for the rest of its existence, if it survived at all. The Dominion fleet realized too late that fleeing was a trap. Every attempt to escape was measured, calculated, and punished. Ships were torn apart in empty space. Capital vessels were shredded into particles. The perfect order of their formations collapsed into chaos. Verax tried to issue countermeasures. Shields intensified. Point defense grids fired. Energy beams lanced through space, hoping to intercept the incoming projectiles. It was futile. The humans had thought of everything. Back on Earth, President Vance turned to the camera link connecting global leaders and military command. She spoke softly, yet every word carried the weight of centuries of survival, of wars, of humanity's unbroken resilience. They believed they could intimidate us, she said. They believed they could calculate our extinction. They believed they understood fear. But they were wrong. They always were. Hale placed a hand on her shoulder. Do we stop now? Vance shook her head. No. Not until every ship that threatened us is gone. Not until they understand that humanity doesn't negotiate with death. We don't surrender. We don't bow. We make sure the people who tried to kill us never forget the cost. And in that moment, a subtle irony struck her. They had not sought victory. They had only sought survival. But the weapon humans built, their ultimate deterrent, had become something else entirely. A message. A warning to the galaxy. A declaration. Humans were not just survivors. Humans were inevitability. Executor Prime Verax stared out through the observation viewport. What remained of the fleet was scattered, broken, terrified. He realized the bitter truth. In 3 centuries, the Dominion had faced no species like this. No one had fought with strategy, with patience, with deliberate vengeance built into the very tools of their survival. And in that realization, a single, horrifying thought emerged. Humanity could not be controlled. Humanity could not be conquered. And the galaxy would remember it. Weeks later, Lazarus Array Node 01 powered down again, returning to its silent vigil beyond Pluto. No one could call it alive, but its purpose had been fulfilled. Humanity had survived the first contact. Humanity had survived the first strike. And humanity had delivered the first, unmistakable warning to the galaxy. Threaten us, and you will not only lose the battle, you will lose the certainty of life itself. Earth turned slowly beneath the stars. Oceans shimmered. Cities buzzed with unknowing life. And somewhere deep in the human heart, a quiet, ironclad truth thrummed like a drumbeat. The galaxy had just learned why no species should ever declare war on humans. Humanity didn't just fight back. Humanity ensured that anyone who tried would regret it forever. End of Part 4.